Welcome to Alien Theorist Theorizing. This is a special edition. This is a review, a breakdown of the Congressional UFO hearing that happened earlier today. Obviously, this is the first Congressional hearing in 50 years. So,
of UFO.
What, like 66?
Yeah, it's
something like that.
Excitement around the UFO community. Socials were buzzing with all this news, and we're going to talk about everything that went down. Now, I know we briefly talked about it last night in the case file. I think I went into it with, I pretty much lowered my expectations because I truly thought it was going to be we can't talk about that. We can confirm nor deny. Yeah. That's what I was going to thought. I literally, that's what I thought was going to happen. It was just going to be this big procedural bullshit, and everyone was going to leave less interested in UFOs than they ever have been in the past. And it exceeded my expectations. It was actually a really interesting. This committee that formed, the members seem genuinely interested in taking these things seriously. One of the things that took, that kind of stuck with me is I forget his name, and he opened it. he opened the committee, and he's saying that these things happen often and frequent, and he goes, we need to start taking them more seriously, and we need to make systems in place so people don't feel the need, aren't embarrassed to report them. And there's not this fear to report them, which has been happening. I really loved the opening with that. I thought it was really interesting. What do you guys think of it?
Well, it goes with this quote from Ronald Moultrie, I think is his name.
He's a beauty.
Top Pentagon intelligence official says, through rigorous analysis, most, but not all, UAPs can be identified. And that's what we're looking for. Not all of them. Some they're like, yeah, that's a drone, that's a meteor, that's a satellite, that's a China lantern. But there's a few that are like, we don't know what they are. And you're like, that's what we got to look into.
Well, and then there was an interesting bit too where another guy was saying, he's like, I would love, he's like, I like aliens and stuff as much as the next guy, but I think this is important because we've, people have been embarrassed to report these things, and there's been such a stigma against UAPs and UFOs that he goes, even if these aren't extraterrestrial tech, this could be technology from Russia and China that we have no understanding of, and we've been too embarrassed to even look at it. So we need to take all these things seriously because,
national security, baby.
National security, which I really liked, because by doing that, it's by taking these things seriously and allowing pilots and stuff to report these things, and without fear of being grounded or ridiculed and stuff, maybe we will find out that a lot of this tech is tech that we've never seen before from other adversarial countries. But there's always a chance that there's going to be the ones where they're like, we don't know, right?
You can tell that they're taking it seriously because last year, they had 143 reports, and now they're up to 400.
Yeah,
right.
Since
they've implemented a lot of the protocols that they said that they were going to. The very first thing they said last year was they were going to stream. Actually, that was before even the last one before they actually legislated this into existence. I think the Office of the Navy of the United States Navy had already started streamlining protocols to open up the doors for the pilot, especially pilots, not just pilots, but ground crew and everybody else too, but military reporting for these kinds of events.
Well, I mean, why would we not want these reports? This should be a safe place. This isn't World War II. Nobody's fucking cracking amphetamines and going for flights, right? Or at least we hope they're not.
Yeah. It's one of those deals that it's they've observed these objects or these events, this phenomenon that have been happening. They said that they've had at least 18 specific events where they were near misses with 18's the number that comes to my head. I might be wrong, but that they had pilots, flying, and they said, they said most of these events occurred like over training areas, and they were talking about non-training areas as well. But they were saying they had at least these reports of these like seemingly, physical objects that had nearly missed these things. So yeah, by making it a security issue and also a safety of our, our United States military members' safety, like it destigmatizes this being like, look, this is a safety thing. Like we're not getting like,
we want to document and organize your accounts, so don't be afraid to at least make a report about it.
Right. So, they talked a little bit about like the, at least one of the Congress members was kind of cool when he asked him, he's like, I used to be a Navy pilot. He brought his experience onto the table, and he's like, so I just landed, I saw something. What am I going to do? What does that reporting process look like? And they kind of laid it out, like what the initial stages was essentially be is like, okay, during a part of your regular debriefing now is going to be like, we're going to bring on the ship's intelligence officer, and they're going to bring in and come in and talk to you. And then they have like they probably have a new form to like fill out.
They don't just come equipped with like UAP whistles whenever they run into something, they just start blowing the whistle.
Not yet. That might be a change that they said. They specifically mentioned that I think they were pretty quick to mention that the current name of it, what is it? It's the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, or AIMSOG, is what they're using.
That's awesome. Well done.
Well, they said they're going to change.
I don't trust it.
They said the name is going to change. Yeah, they said the name is going to change. They said they're like, we're pretty sure that name's going to change once they get everything kind of going.
Yeah, they're like, our acronym guy wasn't here before we started this.
We just had to go with what came to mind.
Anything with AIM in it gives me bad vibes.
Now, the other thing that he said along that lines of Dan is that, like, these fighter pilots and, they train the same way they fight. And so some of these encounters are with these, UAPs entering these restricted training spaces where they shouldn't be, right? And like, kind of to your point, where it's like it causes safety issues, right? Where it's like, if these things are coming in where we're, our pilots are training, one, they don't respond, they exceed our technologies. It's a cause for concern, 100%.
Right. Yep. One interesting comment is they did ask about one of the Congress members asked like the question is like, have we tried communicating with these objects? Which I thought was kind of fun.
Good question.
He was like, "It's a good question." He's like, "Have we tried communicating with them?" And part of me is like, "Yeah, that's a good idea to try and communicate them." But I'm also like, "You're flying at Mach 2 and you're trying to like
wave."
Like a wave. It's like top.
Did you try to shoot it with your 44 that you keep in the glove box?
And I thought that was interesting because that did bring up the point where they were talking about how some of these objects, they said that they had detected radio RF, RF emanations from some of these objects.
They're transmitting radio signals.
Indicating that they didn't really say to what extent or to how those that RF emanations were interpreted. That might be just something that they did in the closed session. Specifically what we're talking about right now is the open session, which is the declassified stuff. Mm-hmm. And then immediately following this, which they've already, it was the closed session, which was going to be for the members of Congress who had the security clearances to receive the reports from the task force. But talking about the RF stuff, they were saying that, to me, it kind of like first thing came to mind was like, radio controlled, unmanned drones, whatever, like that kind of stuff or things like that. But then they also said that, that perhaps like some of it might indicate that they're trying to jam our, like jam radar, like that kind of stuff, which could possibly, that's a thing. So, saying that you got these, to my thing is like, are they trying to, I mean, you could have these things that it's some type of like unmanned drone that's designed for like radar spoofing. That's like, it can shoot out basically radar radio signals, and then it projects an image onto a radar, ghosts onto the thing. So I thought that was kind of neat when they talked about that. But then, it's I thought the hearing is neat. Like it's a cool.
It almost let out more. Yeah, like Braden said, it let out more than we were all thinking.
Right.
There's I found this one quote very interesting, so I'm going to read it. It's from Scott Bray, which is the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence.
Yep.
Quoted as saying, "There are a small handful of events in which there are flight characteristics or signature management that we can explain with the data we have available. Those are obviously the ones that are the most of interest to us." And then goes on later in the thing to say, what does he say here? He says, "It's not about finding alien spacecraft." He had to add that in quotes. But at the same time, he says that in the cases of the objects with unexplainable propulsion, kind of like, the Tic Tac, the gimbal, the ones we've talked about, Mr. Bray said that the U.S. is not aware of any potential adversaries with such technologies, at least that they're willing to admit. So but they see these things with this strange propulsion that seem to, if there was a human occupant, they'd be turned to mush by the G-force. So it's got to be some type of drone or technology we don't know about. And they're saying we don't know, at least publicly, that they're going to disclose of any technology that exists in any foreign adversaries. So however these things are flying, I mean, it's kind of like an easy way to get around it. So if someone did have a drone like that, he's not going to tell us. But he's saying it's not an adversary.
When he said that, I think that it went on a bit further, or that it might have been a different part. But they were talking about that, and they were talking about perhaps there are, maybe not all of them again, but a large number of them. They could be. The important qualifier. There's a lot of qualifiers being thrown around during the committee meeting, and it's with the data we have. So I think it's important to kind of say that it's they right off the bat, they showed a video of one of the reports, a video evidence that they had gotten with a report that they had recently acquired, and it's just like a flash. It's just something really quick.
Yeah,
boom.
the flyby video.
And they're
and it's like you can type that in YouTube, the flyby UFO video. It's so quick. Of just some sort of object zips past at unbelievable speed because it's going opposite speed of the jet, so it's even worse. And it just seconds.
Yeah. So they're saying, a lot of times they're like, that's all we have. We have that, and then they have nothing else. Yeah, to whatever. So they're it could have been an atmospheric phenomenon. It could have been an
I liked it better
object.
because
it could have been anything.
He basically threw up his hands. He's like, to paraphrase, he's basically like, we're just like you guys. We see this shit. We're like, whoa, we don't know. That's it. We have nothing else to go on. I did find it interesting that they did break down those triangle night vision videos.
Right. Yeah.
And I believe we broke those down the exact same way months ago based off a YouTube video of another guy doing it.
I'm sure they watched that same YouTube video. I know they did.
I'm sure they listened to our podcast and didn't give us credit. That's what happened.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
God damn it. Where's my check, U.S. government?
He's like, I did a lot of research for this. I could have gone without the 10 or 15 minutes of that guy asking fucking Ronald Moultrie if he does cosplay because he likes science fiction. I was like, really?
Come on, dude.
I was like, we got an hour and a half here.
You don't necessarily dress up. What is that? Come on, dude.
Yeah, and he's like, that wasn't convincing. So let's talk more about your science fiction interests. I was like, let's not. Yeah, because let's talk about UFOs.
He just said he's like us. He likes sci-fi, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and then they go on the cosplay route. Just because you like science fiction doesn't mean
I
you're
thought
dressing
it
up
was
like
funny
fucking...
that he mentioned that specifically members of his family don't believe the moon landing happened. They still think that's science fiction. So I thought that was
Deep Singh from San Francisco. Cisco threw us some $5 for some beer money.
Oh fuck yeah! Thanks,
Cheers, buddy. I don't have a beer tonight, but I will drink one in your honor.
How about that? The fucking Representative Gallagher. The guy from Wisconsin. He was tossing up. He was asking some fucking...
Throwing some heat.
He talked about Malmstrom, right? He was asking about Malmstrom.
He was bringing the heat. I was impressed. I actually kind of enjoyed it, even though he's a fucking Packers fan. I was like, all right, this guy's all right. He's coming on McAfee's show tomorrow. I'm excited.
To talk about
He's
this?
a-
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
to talk about the UAPs. They're all about it.
Yeah.
We've like mentioned it, or we've talked about the Malmstrom event a couple of times. I'm pretty sure over the course of us.
The Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
we've talked
you
about
had
it
the alleged account of a UFO approaching a base and then or being visually sighted by multiple witnesses and then having nuclear warheads seemingly deactivated within the base itself, or having their launch capability impaired to some extent.
Right.
And so he was bringing that information up, which I was like, hey, that's cool, that's neat, and asking the two members of the task force, kind of, have you guys heard about this? Have you guys investigated this at all? Is this something you've investigated?
If that's real, there's no fucking way they haven't heard of it. Like, not a fucking chance.
Well, I would say, like, yeah, now that it's been brought to their attention, that's something that's kind of neat. It's like, yes, it's been brought to their attention.
If nuclear warheads were being deactivated and shit, like the entire every part of the fucking, even you in the fucking bottom of the boat in the Navy would have found out about that shit.
But that's assuming that there is good documentation of that happening. That if there's, like they said before,
you don't think they're sending that right up the flagpole the minute it happens?
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no fucking way.
The other
Nobody's
thing,
sweeping that under the rug.
I like
Not a
that
chance.
the one guy asked the question, he goes, one concern that I have is that this task force may lean into only looking into ones that they can easily explain. And he goes, like, what assurances are you going to give the public that you're going to look at all of these things? And he's like, we want to look at all of them because we're looking at this from a national security standpoint now. So we want to figure out what all these things are now. So we're gonna take an open-minded approach to all these things. We're looking at every kind of hypothesis or theory on these things, and we're gonna look at all these things. So I like that answer where it's like, because I was kind of worried about that too. I was like, well, sure, they're only gonna look at the ones with the Mylar balloons, right? And they're like, and they said that they're like, that's what we're working through is categories like, no, we can say that's Mylar balloons, that's swamp gas, that's Venus and Gatorade, 100%. But they're going to look at all these videos. But again, the one issue is that some of them, it's just these quick, fleeting glance of a thing where it's like they have as much knowledge as just someone on, like, a member of the public.
Oh, right. They have to bring in, for sure, they got to bring in Tom DeLonge and fucking Bobby Laser.
Buddy,
you want to talk about propulsion? Bring in Bobby Laser. He knows all about those fucking things.
Hey, how about how hard do you think Corbell got that they name dropped him at the beginning of that? Right?
Megalithlically.
He was just at home like, oh, yes, I made it.
Raging.
Yeah.
He's got nothing for him.
But I will give, I think you can give some credit to Corbell and
100%.
people
You
like
have to.
Lou Elizondo. Like, you can give them credit for bringing these stuff up. Tom DeLonge and all them, kind of still keeping it in the DeLonge, keeping it into the public eye, because you might not have had any of this stuff kind of come into a head. It's taken a while, it's, that this has all kind of happened, but kind of keeping it in the long run, this is something that is, like, fundamentally, this is kind of the transparency we should have had
for a while,
for so long.
Yeah.
ATIP was a completely secret program. Never saw anything about this. You spent $60 million. Like, why? What were you looking at? Where are the reports? All that kind of stuff. It's just that kind of, this is, and they said that in the committee meeting, they kind of talked about how this is the function of government oversight. This is what it should have. This is what it should be. Is that you have publicly elected officials bringing the concerns of citizens to the front, and then legislating the proper actions and protocols into existence to deal with this stuff. And I think this is it's important. So I do think the big UFO heads do deserve a little bit of credit.
Yeah. 100%. If you put in the time, regardless of what people say about, like, DeLonge and To the Stars, they did bring those videos public first.
Right.
And then a few years later, they're like, yeah, these videos are real and we don't know what they are. So like they did, if it would have turned out that they brought those videos and like, all these videos have been doctored or altered and these are not real and we're not going to acknowledge their existence, it would have been different. But they're like, no, they're actually, those are real events and we don't know what happened. We talked to one of the guys, we talked to Kevin Day on it, you know? So
I just think, yeah. And I think like the way they ran ATIP in the beginning, like back then still seems kind of shitty. So it's like, okay, so you guys put together this secret program, you contracted through one guy, one rich dude, and then you kind of took all your stuff and then you let him take it and then lock it up. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And then you just kind of shut it down without even really doing anything. Like what, like we spent $60 million on what? Where did that money go? That to me is more concerning than some other aspects of this. But like I enjoyed this type of transparency being put forth. That being like, okay, we have people who are in charge. They specifically asked. I liked a lot of the questions that were kind of just like, do you guys have everything that you need in order to do your job? Like one member of Congress was asking them, do you have all the clearances that you need? Are the other agencies that you are corroborating with, the other alphabets, the other, DIA, whatever, everybody.
Space Force.
DOD, Space Force. Like, do you have channels with these people? And are you being, kind of asking them, like, is anybody not cooperating the way that they should be? And they're like, no, we got a weird working relationship with everybody. We've got everything. We found... I think they specifically mentioned like they're bringing in all kinds of experts, like a very, everybody, like Braden said, they're bringing in a lot of people and they're kind of studying it from every angle. I think they specifically mentioned like astrobiologists and physicists and, meteorologists,
theorists,
all these people. But yeah, I think the whole kind of this meeting was just a really good initial kind of setting up, being like, do you guys know what you're doing, and do you have the stuff that you need?
The other thing that I like, when I was kind of left with that I was like humming and hawing in my head, is that like, if these, the kind of like what Zell said, where they said like, they're not aware of other technologies, other countries in possession of these kind of technologies that defy our kind of understanding of physics and stuff. If they kind of suss out that these aren't, would they still even say that they're extraterrestrial? Because for me, I was kind of thinking that leaves the dope. Like I don't think they would, because they don't know for sure. If they don't know for sure, it's easier for them to just say, well, hey, we don't know.
We don't know.
Right. And just leave it at that. But then honestly, when we hear in the future and in these congressional meetings where they say that, we're like this, we don't know. To me, that's that's pretty big. Like to even just say that with those, like now that they're looking into these things, those are the ones where you want to look at then in kind of with more scrutiny, where you're like, okay, well, fuck, even our government with this task force and, everything at their beck and call doesn't know what these things are, then those are the ones I'd be most interested in.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the implications of admitting that are pretty big, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
in the committee though, they also said like, well, I think they were asked like, have you recovered any extraterrestrial craft? And they said no, in the simplest terms. They're like, we do not possess any otherworldly craft, devices, creatures, and or propulsion systems that have been left and or crashed on the planet.
Well, that the people in that room are aware of.
Until they went to the back room in the secret committee and they went,
yeah.
What do you think they had in the back room?
A couple grays.
Come check this shit out, son.
All right, you guys did good work. You didn't give us away.
Yeah. Welcome to the club, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another important part where they were talking about a lot of these. They said a number of these objects, like they're like, we can explain a lot of these that seemingly are strange. They're like, we can, like, a lot of these reports, like we can explain them. We can't explain them in the open session because we don't want other countries that are potential adversaries to know how we know what we know. They're saying, certain types of sensors and they're kinds of like reconnaissance abilities. Like you don't want anybody. And I think we talked about that one, or
we've talked about that a few times about like, how we know stuff. We wouldn't want to let our adversaries know how we know, because then they know how we know.
Okay.
So they're going to try and counter.
So they know that we know that they know that we know.
But see, and again, the downside for me for that is that also kind of leaves the door open in my mind of that we know what all these things are, but we don't even want to say that we like, if we like, we don't want to say because we know Russia and China has this tech. And we know, but we don't want them to know that we know. So it's like this is all a big
we know that they know
facade,
that we know.
right? Like that's what I kind of worry about, is that it's like we're not giving any information, and this is just to further kind of make it seem like we don't know what they have and what they're capable of. Because it's like Annie Jacobson proposed that Russia is light years ahead in aerospace engineering after. Operation Osavayakim, and that the Roswell crash. Yeah, and that was the girl, and like the Roswell crash was actually a craft full of Russians. Like it was a Russian crash.
children or something.
Irradiated Russian mutant kids, basically.
Yeah, they just and my guess is they drove it too fast, hit some G-forces, and all turned into mashed potatoes and crashed into Roswell.
They launched it off a sub off the coast of like San Francisco.
Yeah.
A spaceship filled with kids crashed.
Yeah.
You don't fucking say.
Yeah. No surprise here.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is going to be like they said they're still technically a little in the early days of this task force. Like it's just been formed. They just named the head of it just a few days ago before this meeting, and I thought it was. There's some people out there that are kind of being like, why now? Why are they doing this meeting now? You've got all this other stuff going on in the world. You've got war in Ukraine. You've got food shortages. You've got all this crap, and it could seemingly to some people be interpreted as they're trying to bury this in the news or stuff like this. And the simplest answer is like, this meeting was scheduled like a year ago.
Yeah.
They legislated the task force into existence. They gave it 5 months. It's back there in the, like I remember reading in the committee notes, like the actual deadline, they're like, you got 5 months from here to give us a report about what's going on and the thing. Because I think when they brought the task force in, they said they have to give them like an annual report, and then they have to also like have like 2 semi-annual reports. So twice a year, they're supposed to report their findings to the Senate Intelligence Select Committee or whatever. So, but it's going to be neat if they keep having these open ones, because then this will be kind of neat. I mean, every year you'll have something, that this will be kind of neat to kind of see how it shapes up. I think it's fascinating that it's just kind of become, this is just a part of it now. This is just kind of a normal open thing, or it's become kind of almost mundane.
It's more like it's more in the pop culture now. It's like,
it's more out in the open. Like they said, it's time to bring this kind of program like out of the shadows. It's not a Project Blue Book. It's not.
And
Grudge.
They're like this what we're talking about here is a huge interest to the public in our country. And it is like, it's in pop culture, media, it's everything. Everyone's interested in it. So it's cool that, with time now, we're going to see more and more and more UFO reports. Like, you think 400 is surprising. I can't wait for the next one where we these reports are through the roof, right? And I'm sure, again, it's going to be 90% Mylar balloons, but the 10% that they don't know, right? That's what's going to be interesting.
And I thought it was also kind of funny. They brought up the idea of having like a cross between like a military and civilian like report, because like, do you have any channels for civilian reports? And I know the guy is. He's like no.
Why? He's like, why would we? I pay the $50 a month for my MUFON subscription so I can look through the database just like everyone else.
But it's like, there's no way they'd be able to do it. And I think they kind of brought that up too. They're like, we don't have the resources to field the number of UFO reports that you would get, which are a large majority of anecdotal, experiential kind of reports that people are like, I saw something. And so having that, because that's kind of like, I feel like that was one of Blue Book's kind of, one of Blue Book's criticisms, was like, it was basically Hynek driving around the country in a beat up old shitty government car chasing down UFO reports. And he's like, it's just me. It's just me going out getting these reports. I get there like 3 days late. And then, I got Farmer Bob out here saying he saw something weird and up in the air, like while he was drinking his homemade moonshine. Like I got to write all this down and then I got to submit this. So it's neat that it's like, this is an actual task force. They've got actual people. And they've got the resources that are needed. They're really hammering out a standardized protocol of reporting across organizations.
Now, on the topic of reporting, we got a question in the chat from Uncle Slam. He says, apparently aviators now have instructions on their knee boards for reporting UAPs. Do y'all think that will make a difference? Now, I'm going to say I think it will in the long run, but the difficult thing is there's, you have to change the culture. And the culture for so long, it's been stigmatized. And, reporting these things is risking your career or being ridiculed, right? And I think it's going to be a slow transition because those things are like, it's government. You think the first guy's going to want to be like, if I report this, am I really not going to be ridiculed? Am I really is this not going to look bad for me? Are they just going to collect it? So I think
so you got to incentivize it.
Well, I think for the first while, it's going to be slower while they change the culture of making it okay to report these things, especially when you grasp it from like a national security, like we want to know what these national security standpoint, because we want to know what these things are and we want to study them just in case. So like, forget what we've been told in the past. We understand that this was a Sigma and this was a real thing. That's out the window. We need to know these things and we need to know when you see them or you think you see them. Right.
One of the other interesting points one of the congressmen brought up was the idea of having to field false reports, like how they should be dealing with those. And they were talking about how, he's like, is there a thing in place for some type of reprimand or something that's going to happen that people field these false reports? And they had actually, I guess, at some point. The task force in their formation kind of talked about it, trying to figure out they're like, it is a consideration of ours. There could be hostile countries, forces, whatever, trying to inject into false reports. This could possibly be happen. And the Congress is like, well, can you guys punish them? Or is there going to be any sort of punishment or any, can you do anything? And the guy was like, no, what would we do? He's just kind of, he's like, he's like, you
no
guys would
screen
have to,
time for 2 weeks.
Yeah. He's like, you guys would have to give us the
room.
power to punish people for making false reports. We don't have that. We don't have that authority. I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, what? He's pretty goofy. All of it seems pretty. It seems shaping up nicely.
It seems like it's a step in the right direction, in my opinion. From all the stuff we got in the past, it's always ridiculed. Now it's like, no, that we do. There is some events that we don't understand the propulsion. We don't think it's we don't. We're not going to tell us that it's adversaries. They're saying no adversaries we know of have technology like this. So it makes it. It's those type of sentences, like those statements that lead to wonder, okay, if it's not adversaries, it's obviously aliens. There's no other way around it, right? In my opinion.
Has to be.
It's aliens.
I mean, you have atmospheric phenomenon, which could be, it could be
sounds like
weather,
a weak ass.
weather events.
Okay, flat Earth, Dan.
All right, CIA, Dan. We've heard it all before.
It's a cloud, space cloud.
Ball lightning, man. Plasma currents, like an electromagnetic
Ball lightning doesn't move fast, though.
How do you know? You ever seen ball lightning?
Well, I've just read all the accounts, and
we got another question in the chat. We got another question in the chat from Ken Harrington.
It's fast ball lightning.
Is this really going to change anything, or is it a smoke screen? If anything, I think this is slowly clearing the smoke screen. I think it's, if we slowly get some sort of system in place where these can be reported and then studied. I mean, I think that will change things because forever, we have friends that are pilots who say you don't report it. You don't. right? And if there's an avenue that makes that okay, then yeah, I think we'll see it. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow everything's changed, but I think over time we're going to see
Slow drip.
Yeah,
Slow drip.
they did mention that they do have in terms of, like I said, they didn't really have an open line for civilian, but they did say that they're cooperating with the FAA. So they do have the
there
FAA.
is an open line for civilians. What are you talking about, Dan? They said there's an open.
Jesus.
There's an open line for. Yes, there is, Dan. It's 1-833-703-0424.
Fuck you, call us.
Sunday night, 6:30. You can call us and tell us all about it.
Any story you want.
Any story you want. We will take on what the United States government can't, and that's reporting UFOs. You can report them to us.
And then they should ship a proportional amount of tax dollars our way.
Yeah, and we will use our massive resources that we have at our disposal to try and identify that UFO that you have seen.
We'll crack the case before we're done here, I think.
But no, they did say that they're working with the FAA as well. So I would also hope that they are going to, while destigmatizing this stuff in relation to military pilots, civilian pilots as well, because I think that's something that's important.
Oh yeah.
So
what's that? The Japanese one with the airliner? Like that was it's insane one.
That was a massive UFO.
So if they're having
UFO.
the FAA reports as well and being like, hey, look, civilian pilots, commercial airline pilots and that stuff, like if you're seeing something and report it to the FAA, it's going to get to us. And then they can bend the resource, they can allocate the resources in order to investigate these things. So I think that's important as well. So it's just, the whole thing was they were saying that like we want this to be driven by our investigation into these events, and this phenomenon wants to be as data driven as possible, and we need as much as we can get. So we're doing that. We're establishing those as reliable data and as much data as we can get, and they seem to be doing that.
Yeah, super cool. It's the first time since, what was it, 1966? I must have been like, who's president? Ford? Reagan? Ford?
Reagan.
Ford?
Reagan,
Condon
66.
Anyways, it was like 66 was the last time this happened.
Condon report.
Over 50 years ago. We're getting it now in our time. So we thought we had to touch on this topic quickly, immediately after this came out. We're going to keep our ears there. Maybe we can. Dan's coming back to the States, and he lives close to DC.
I could show up. I could have went to that if I were in the States. Actually.
Yeah. Don't you have some neighbors that are like high up, like some big senators or something? You could just get on the podcast.
His dad's a frog man. He can just walk
His
right
dad's
in.
SEAL Team 6 or whatever.
This is true. It turns out Jesse Ventura was not a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. They'll just pull me into the closed session. They'll just be like, yeah, you wearing that. Yeah, you with the hat. And
Yeah, and Dan gets back.
Is that legendary Bud Works kid? Get him in here. Give him a pass.
So yeah, we live in interesting times, and I'm excited to see more of this. What's going on?
Yeah, and we're going to cover it when these things pop off, these congressional hearings. There's going to be more in the future and stuff. We'll probably cover them similar to this one, just kind of review what's said in them, takeaways and whatnot, and we'll go from there. But it's exciting times for sure.
Oh yeah. All right, it was a late night record, last minute. I had to get it in though, so. I'm pretty sure that is it. I'm sure more stuff will come trickling out as the weeks and months kind of go on after this, but we'll keep our ears down.
Yep.
And we'll try and get one of these motherfuckers on the show.
Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Alien Theorist Podcast. You can find us on social media anywhere, Alien Theorists or Alien Theorist Theorizing. Easy to find. And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.
Peace.